Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Midweek Report. Or maybe not to be the Midweek Report soon. We may have that name change within the next day or two. I finally have everything rearranged, so we just have to put that back up. But that's a day for another day. Just thought that was a nice little bit of
Information for everyone to know.
housekeeping information, yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, name might officially be changed soon, perhaps. We will see.
Not officially. Anyways, I'm Nick, as always, and this over here on the horn is Justin, providing gameplay with Doom Eternal. So,
Yeah.
if you haven't noticed by the title and the description, God of War. I played it when it first came out, enjoyed it, really enjoyed it, have finished it. But I should preference by saying spoiler warning. I will not be holding back on the story or anything. So, leave now.
Again,
You left?
the game has only been out for less than a month, so if you are interested in, playing it for yourself, this is kind of still that grace period of you should be going and doing that yourself and not trying to spoil yourself, but
Well, in
we can
fairness,
only
let's
do
be
so much for you.
Well, some people might be getting promised it or gonna get it for Christmas for themselves or someone else or yada yada yada.
Yes.
So
So,
it's still a possibility that it'll be a Christmas game for people.
I mean,
'Cause I
no
know for
matter
a
no
fact.
matter what, this video is literally called God of War Ragnarok. So
Review
the whole
and
the
commentary,
yeah the
so
whole
you kind of knew what
purpose
you were getting into.
the whole purpose of this is literally to talk about the game. So again,
We weren't hiding
final
anything.
warning now.
We aren't hiding anything in the title. It's all there. Probably should have put spoiler warning in there, but I didn't do that necessarily.
We don't need no spoiler warning. Besides, the game is gonna be Doom anyways, so it doesn't matter.
Well, I know that, but for the sake of those in the video, regardless. I mean, like I said, there's gonna be a pretty dry holiday season because there really isn't anything coming out this holiday outside of like the Callisto Protocol, which is basically by the same guy and team guy, as well as his new team that made the old Dead Space series, and
Yes.
it's kind of the spiritual successor to that. So I might be playing that. Depends on how horror-y I feel and how much will I'm able to.
How
drive
much you're
up.
willing to put yourself through horror?
Yeah, we anyone who knows this channel knows that I don't like subjecting myself to horror intentionally, though there are a few horror-esque games I play. Like I love the Dying Light series. Played all of Dying Light 1, I think twice, and I have Dying Light 2 and I'm playing that. So, and yeah, technically it is a horror game, but if you play it right, it really isn't.
If you play it right, it isn't.
Yeah, that's the thing. It sounds weird, but there are horror aspects to the game, right? With the zombies and everything. But that's more or less only if you go out and do the stuff at night. And there's only like 2 times in the entire game where you're forced to do that. The rest you can always do it in the morning if you want to. So, and that changes the game feel completely, where it's like not only can you see a lot more, but the enemies are a lot weaker, they're a lot slower, more traditional zombies, whereas you're like parkouring on buildings and rooftops and they're just brain dead. So, it makes things a lot more in your favor, so it's a lot less fearful. Whereas at night, it's like you're looking over your shoulder like, oh shit, is something right behind me?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Am I
Especially
in
Dying Light
danger?
Especially in like Dying Light 1, where the volatiles were just everywhere. And going on at night was basically a death sentence. But I mean, the game's motto has always been good night, good luck. So it's not like they weren't telling you on the box cover. Regardless,
They weren't lying to you.
But yeah. So other than the Callisto Protocol, there really isn't anything coming out this holiday season. And God of War came out in November, like beginning of November, I think. So yeah, this is probably the closest thing we're gonna get to a holiday game. Like I said, Hogwarts Legacy also got delayed, so there's not that. On the PC front, I'm not sure, but I mean, there is Pokemon, the new Pokemon. Scarlet and Violet came out, I believe, and that one had interesting reviews, so I don't know. But yeah. But anyways, God of War. So what did I think about it? Because I'm really the only one who played it between us all.
Yes. I have
should
seen
really try you,
gameplay
like-
and I have seen the story thoroughly, but other than that, I am lying.
I like 2018, the original version of the 2 for like a Christmas gift. I think I'll do that actually. But anyways, I've played, full disclosure, all the God of Wars except like 1 or 2 of the PS Vita or PSP old ones. Like I haven't played Ghost of Sparta, War Chains of Olympus. That's the only games I have not played. I have played and I think also finished just about all of them. Other than that, so
There you go.
I am well familiar with this series. I'm not gonna
I'll
go
be
the reboot.
honest. I think the only God of War game I've played was the first or second. I'm not 100% sure, but I did play it when I was a little younger. I played it at a friend's house, but frankly, like, other than that, yeah, not really.
Fun fact, I did actually, on the lead up to God of War Ragnarok, actually play the entirety and finish the entirety of God of War 3 leading up to this.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I actually managed, because for fun reasons, God of War 3 is the only one they remastered for the PlayStation 4. Don't ask me why. So it's the only one you can actually get on disc for the PlayStation 4, and thus play on the PlayStation 5 by proxy.
Yes.
I believe all of the God of Wars have been put up on, like, PlayStation's, like, their subscription thing, whatever their gaming service is that allows you to play all the old games. Sly Cooper's actually on there too, and I've been wanting to be able to play all the old Sly Coopers again, so I might just get that. Just we'll see. Not irrelevant. Side note.
Irrelevant.
But as for God of War Ragnarok itself, it's a really good game. Not going to lie, it's a very good successor to the 2018 reboot. Well, I say reboot, more of a soft reboot. They don't throw out the old story.
No, yeah, for the most, yeah, it needs to be said right away. I've actually seen a good number of people saying that, like, oh, the series has been rebooted. It's been rebooted. No, it really hasn't. For the most part, the main original story from, like, the first 3 games is there. It's just, it's mostly Kratos just putting it all to the side and being like, I do not want to go through this again, please. Don't make me a mass destroyer again.
Regard. Yeah, that's the
like
thing.
He still accepts what he was and all that for the most part, but like it kind of feels like he doesn't want to be doing that again. He doesn't want to be the destroyer, basically.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? When people say the God of War series has been rebooted, they're right and wrong at the same time. It's kind of what that's
Two things can be true at the same time.
It's basically what we call a soft reboot in the industry. Basically, a hard reboot is they take the series and just completely throw out the old story and just say, hey, we're going to start from section 1 and just retell the whole thing.
Yeah.
A soft reboot is they keep all the old stuff, they just maybe change to a different setting or different plot or different timeline, or not different timeline, a different age, which is kind of what they did for this one, where this basically takes place after Kratos fled Sparta, like back in God of War, or fled Olympus back in God of War 3 after Greece was left in complete apocalypse. Entirely because of his fault, but that's beside the point. And there's actually an intermittent comic that was released with 2018, kind of telling the intermittent years between him arriving in Sparta and him arriving in, I don't know, Norway. But, you know, it's basically him retired, and he has a son now, his wife, he got remarried, she's dead, again. He just keeps losing wives. But the point is that, you know, he's now raising a son who he really doesn't want to experience through his past. And, well, that was basically the plot of 2018. TLDR, his son finds out who he is. He's fine with it. And they go on a rip-romping adventure to create and start Ragnarok. Oh, by the way, his son among the giants, who apparently he remarried a giant without knowing it. Not the giant from, like, you know, 6-foot tall giant. Apparently, fun fact, in the God of War universe, there's kind of like a tier list of giants. There are some giants who truly are gigantic.
Who are actual, like, giants, and then they're just, I am a giant, but not really.
Yeah, I'm a giant in name only, but, it's weird how that works, but, you know, whatever. Doesn't stop them from being, like, apparently able to punch through rope, punch through, like, stone, but whatever. But yeah, so he remarried a giant without knowing it. His son, who he calls Atreus, actually also has another name among giants called Loki. And that's basically the whole plot of Ragnarok. Basically figuring out what the hell Loki has to do with anything, and the threat of the apocalypse. And at the end of 2018, also Kratos catches a glimpse of a mural, which foretells his own death. So you might not think that's much, but but apparently in God of War, the giants have something of a good track record for being able to predict the future.
Yes.
Which is kind of why Odin, who is the main antagonist of Ragnarok, and well, not the first game, but Ragnarok. He's brought up a lot in the first game, though. Through Mimir, the talking head, but that's another story. Who used to be his former employee. But anyways,
Yes.
and again, there's a lot of Norse mystery there if you want to get into the details. But basically, Odin's a dick. But not on the same tier as Zeus from the old games. I think I actually had someone in the descriptions from one of the videos I was watching about Ragnarok really describe it well. Zeus is portrayed in the old games as a douche. And he really is a douche. He does not even
And I
hide
mean,
that.
frankly, let's be honest here for a quick second. Zeus mythology and all that, like the whole legends of Zeus and everything, kind of fits within the whole how he was treated in God of War. Like he was
Yeah,
kind of
no,
just
in
that.
fairness.
I do not care about any of you. I do what I want.
Basically, that's kind of actually pretty historically accurate, truth be told.
Yeah.
Zeus never really did give a shit about anyone, really.
He only really
And
went
then
to
you
someone if he needed something or was like, I have quote unquote a mistake. You are going to fix it.
But in God of War Ragnarok and the kind of Norse series, there's a funny bit of information I should probably disclose here. Some people are probably wondering at the end of God of War Ragnarok if that's the end of the series, because they kind of closed everything out. I'm going to skip ahead to the end here, but basically what happens is, again, spoiler warning, Atreus basically kind of learns all the giants either fake their own death or have gone off and left. Because apparently, in the first game, the giants are portrayed as, like I said, this race of giants that were really, really good at predicting the future. So good that one of them even managed to glimpse the apocalypse, i.e. Ragnarok. Odin, who we'll get to in a second, wanted this information because he wants to know everything, simply so he can be all-knowing and all-powerful by extension. Really big believer in the whole knowledge is power shtick. But anyways, he finds his giant, kills this giant for the information, before promptly getting her to tell everything, and then steals her entire collection of ancient books, because, again, but...
I am Zeus. I mean, Odin.
well, we'll get to Odin in a second.
Yes.
But the fun part about this is that, you know, Odin is... you know, the what you learn in Ragnarok is that, what you learn in the first game is that basically Ragnarok is kind of like it's portrayed in the Norse myths. It's great doomsday, Odin dies, Thor dies, basically everyone dies in the Norse realm, and the entire 9 realms of existence collapse in on themselves. That's what was told to Odin. However, it turns out the soothsayer you learn in Ragnarok lied, and actually withheld information from Odin. Turns out the true prophecy of Ragnarok is not what it's told in mythology and in the first game, but actually is slightly different. Turns out, the real story goes like this. Ragnarok happens, and only Asgard is destroyed by Sithr, or Ragnarok. And only Odin dies, and a few others. Only some of the Aesir gods die, and Asgard is destroyed. That's it. That's Ragnarok. Nobody else. And basically the whole reason this knowledge was withheld from Odin is because in the years since he's learned about this prophecy, which I'm going to guess is a few 100,000 years, or more, or less, who knows. It doesn't really give it a timeline, but a very long time. Let's say 100 years or so. He has been preparing to avoid the apocalypse, or perhaps I should say, more specifically, avoid him dying in the apocalypse. He really doesn't care if it happens, he just doesn't want him to die. Which is actually on brand for Odin in mythology, too. He also didn't want himself to die in the apocalypse, because he was also aware that he would die come Ragnarok, but... anyways, his whole shtick is that he doesn't want to die in the apocalypse, that he's going through hell and high water to ensure it doesn't happen, regardless of who and how he has to do it. However, all this time, he's been working on a bogus prophecy, and he's been trying to prevent the wrong things. Which brings us kind of back to Odin himself. As I said before, in the original games, Zeus was portrayed as a douche because he was a douche. In this game, however, we have Odin as the central antagonist, at least in Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Odin is simply brought up a lot in the first game, as are the rest of the Aesir gods, but we don't actually meet any of them outside of Balder and Thor's 2 sons, who you kill the 2 sons and Balder as well by the end of the game, so... you know, we only meet those 3. and they're more lesser outside of Baldur. In this game, Odin is portrayed as... In the first game, Odin is portrayed as a monster. He is portrayed as a killer who will do anything and everything he can to get ahead, no matter how cunning, no matter how conniving, no matter how backstabbing, no matter how heartless it is. He will do it simply because it gets him ahead. He is this master manipulator, this schemer. Remember that soothsayer I was talking about? Well, the whole reason she became a soothsayer was to find her wife, or to find her husband, who had vanished many years ago. Well, fun fact how that actually happened. Turns out Odin, who again has something of a hate boner for the giants because of their hoarding of knowledge and not trusting of him, which you can't exactly blame them. Turns out Thor killed all the giants, including him. And Odin basically disguised the death. Or basically Odin was ordered Thor to go kill him. For reasons that, I don't know, he just hates giants. And basically used his magic to disguise the death from her. So she's been looking all these years for her husband, who she doesn't even know is dead. And is friends with Odin, who she thinks is a very, large patron of her soothsaying services, whom she doesn't even know is both the guy who ordered the killing as well as covered it all up. And upon learning about Ragnarok, he simply goes up to her, according to the story, smiles, and promptly strangles her to death. Yeah, he's a really fun guy, Odin. But it kind of gives you a picture of who we're dealing with here, right? But in the second game, when you finally meet him, he's this old dude who has ravens, and he's portrayed as this manipulator. He's not conniving, or at least he doesn't portray himself as.
He doesn't, he seems slightly conniving, but he seems more of just a manipulator rather than a bitmaster schemer.
Yeah, no.
He just kind of seems like he just manipulates those around him who trust him.
Yeah, he's a manipulator. He's a schemer. He really doesn't, get his hands dirty himself. In fact, he rarely does. But he's often portrayed as this schemer, this manipulator. And he looks down on, for example, his own son Thor has something of daddy issues with Odin, whom Odin just kind of views as expendable muscle to some degree. Hell, he even calls, when he first appears in the very beginning of the game, he actually arrives. Like, the first cutscene is what is the end of God of War 2018, which is Thor shows up at Kratos' doorstep. And 2018 is basically kind of the continuation, or Ragnarok is basically the continuation of that scene. Albeit with a little bit more lead up to it, with a bit more epilogue. Thor walks in, presents mead, wishes to discuss things. And then, knocking on the door, Odin shows up. And turns out the whole reason both of them are here is because they want to discuss the fact that Odin, or Kratos, has killed both Baldur and Thor's two sons. Which, among the Norse, as we come to learn, is, not good. But it basically means that Kratos now owes something of a blood debt.
We have something here called the blood debt.
Yeah, you've probably seen that scene.
Yeah.
And basically Odin says this. Tell you what, I'll forgive the killing of Thor's two sons because he literally looks at Thor and says, let's be honest, they were kind of useless anyway. Which again kind of shows you how he thinks of people. But then he goes, but Baldur, he was useful. He was my best tracker. I needed him. So Odin presents a deal. You leave it alone, you don't interfere with anything, and we'll call it even. Kratos obviously turns him down, and in the end, thus the battle with Thor ensues. That's one of two battles you actually have to wage with him. One at the beginning of the game, one at the end. But actually, funny enough, Thor in the first game is also portrayed as something of a douche. Basically, a lot of people refer to Thor in this game as basically what Kratos was in the old games. Just kind of an unhinged killing machine.
Yeah.
Albeit with, well, I want to say a lot less daddy issues, but then again, Kratos really hated Zeus, and it is revealed that it is his father, so...
Father, I have come. The sisters of fate could not hold me.
Yes. Okay, you know what? In this case, it's less hate for father and more emotional damage caused by father. This has caused Thor to become
Emotional.
drunk. It's true. It's caused him to become a drinker and this and da da da
Well,
da
I
da.
don't think he's a drinker.
Oh no, Thor is a drinker.
Oh, okay, Thor's a drink. Okay, I thought you were talking about
Thor's
like,
drinks, but you know,
Kratos.
not
I was gonna be like, I don't think Kratos drinks to like because he's depressed. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's depressed.
Kratos punches things when he's depressed.
Yeah, I was gonna be like, I don't think he drinks when he's depressed. I think he just kills when he's depressed.
Yeah, no, this has caused Thor to become a drinker, and he had with his two sons, Magni and Modi, the sons you killed in the last game. He he beat them up as kids and stuff like that because that's what his father did to him, and you know, he's portrayed as this bad guy in the first game. But in the second game, Ragnarok, you learn that he's trying to improve. You know, he really doesn't like his father, and you can kind of see that when there's actually a scene when Atreus goes to Asgard, kind of fulfilling the prophecy a little bit, and actually serves Odin for a little bit, albeit kind of as a double agent. You learn that you meet Odin's wife, you meet Odin's wife, you meet Thor's wife, you meet his daughter, you meet, you know, Thor himself, obviously, who actually goes on a few missions with you. And you learn that the guy's trying to reform. You know, he's trying to be a better father. Because it turns out after the death of Magni Modi, his wife was like, I'm giving you, you know,
I'm
kind
giving
of a
you
thing.
only a few options here.
And even Mimir, who we talked about, the talking head, doesn't believe it. Because he goes, wait, she's sober and she's trying to be a good mother? Back in Asgard, being a good woman meant being a hard warrior and a harder drinker. And they kind of all theorized that after the death of Magni Modi, she was like, I need to be a better mother for our daughter. I'm going to go straight, and I'm going to tell my husband, you will go straight now, too. And you can see that while she has, he's still trying. You know, we actually see him get into a massive bar fight in the game while after a big argument with his father, or shall we say his father kind of calls him, are you broken? Go away. Which again really shows you the fatherly love Odin gives his son. And he ends up going to a bar, drinks himself silly, and then causes a bar fight with all the Einarjar. So, and you actually get to see and participate in that bar fight, so...
Yes. It's glorious.
In the end, Thor does end up stand up to his father in the final battle. You do actually fight him again over something of a misunderstanding, because Kratos actually, or Atreus actually has... It's weird. Over the course of the game, Atreus actually gets 2 girlfriends.
Basically.
He gets Agaboda, who is actually one of the last giants outside of Atreus. I say one of the last because Agaboda's grandmother, who is actually gigantic giant, is also still alive.
Well, I mean, technically there's a few giants, but for the most part...
I mean, there's a few giants. I mean, there's Jormungandr and...
He kind of just... Abribe Adios Master from...
Yeah, he
from
kind of
Thor.
chills out through the entire course of Ragnarok. People thinking, wait. Doesn't he participate in Ragnarok? We'll get to that.
Yeah, he kind of does, but Abribe Adios from Thor.
Well, that's because in the first game it was foretold that apparently the rumor was that the guy got smacked so hard in Ragnarok he actually caused a time loop and went back into the past. Now that's one hell of a hard sucker punch. Regardless... funny enough, Atreus meets Agaboda. Throughout their adventures, actually meet Agaboda's grandmother, another one of the surviving giants. On the note of the giants are weird, because, like I said, in the first game they're portrayed as this wise bunch of people who were persecuted, murdered en masse by Odin for hoarding knowledge from him because they thought they had the secret of preventing Ragnarok, and blah 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 blah. Here's the thing. The giants did have these things, and they kept it from Odin, and so it wasn't kind of wrong. The thing is, however, the giants also aren't perfect, and we actually learn in the first game that they are really into the whole Destiny thing, like too into the whole Destiny thing. What I mean is that when Ragnarok was foretold, and the giants have this thing where they basically can foresee their own deaths, right? And basically they say, well, that's Destiny, I'm not even going to try and avoid it, that's just the way of things. Here's the thing. When Ragnarok was foretold, and all that happened, and the giants predicted everything, they're like, Well, some of them were like, we don't want to just live life purely on the sake of whatever the hell some soothsayer dreamed up while drinking some magic mushrooms. Which, again, turns out more often than not to be correct, but that's beside the point. They're like, we can fight fate, we can be our own people, da-da-da-da-da. And this caused a splintering. So, after all the giants were massacred throughout the 9 realms and basically all driven back to their realm, there was something of a splintering. Some giants said, okay, we're just going to stick our heads in the sand and wait till it all goes away. And in the course of the game, you actually learn what happened to those giants. The bodies you see at the end of Ragnarok, at the end of 2018, aren't the giants. Well, it might be, but it's not them then. It's all basically a grand staging of their death. What they did is they used some of their magic, their soul magic, to basically yank their souls out and stick them in little marbles. And not the most elegant solution, but it works. And it allows them to essentially live on in the marbles. And Agaboda says in these marbles they found peace. You know, they're at peace. Because they didn't want to just sit there and wait for themselves to die. And they just left those bodies laying around in the beginning, that we see in the first game, just to kind of make sure that anyone who comes around to the realm kind of thinks they're all dead. Just so it keeps nobody from looking. And Agaboda's been carrying around this rock box ever since, or this rock bag ever since. But not all the giants agreed with this method. Some of them are like, screw this, if we can't stay here, why don't we just leave? Not just leave this realm, leave all the realms. Well, Kratos did it. He came from Sparta. Why can't we just go to, I don't know, China, meet the Chinese gods, or Egyptian gods, or some shit, I don't know. And that's what they did. Some giants didn't want to leave their chance up to destiny.
I'm gonna say it real quick for what it is, though. I don't think you want to go to any Asian like deity or anything, because they've got a whole lot of stuff. Just an average day for an Asian housewife is, allow me to go and deal with like 8 demons in one going. Go and make sure my child isn't possessed.
Well, I mean, compared to Odin, it's probably much safer. Regardless, you know, to go live out essentially as essentially as a bunch. Basically, the giants were like, hey, let's go live as like a pack of wandering gypsies in some other realm, or basically just splinter and go off to the other realms. And that's what they did. Well, some of them, like I said, stayed behind and became marbles. As for his other girlfriend, well, that's Thor's daughter. Yeah, this is complicated. Especially because
it makes it for you.
Especially considering all the blood that Atreus and his father spilt in that family. But again, whatever. I can't remember her name, but basically she just wants to become a Valkyrie, and you know, she doesn't believe, however, in all the things that Odin has done. And Atreus is like, oh, how to explain this? And yeah. In the end, she does end up believing, though, because when Ragnarok happens and Kratos and his son show up and da-da-da-da-da, he goes, you know, you attacked our home and stuff like that. And when Atreus goes, it's not me, it's your father, she goes, why should I believe you? Because Atreus goes, he uses people. He just uses people. Her mother actually comes out because it's revealed she's actually trying to evacuate. Yeah, because apparently she's actually been. Because here's the thing, right? Thor won't stand up to his father because of an inferiority complex among emotional damage. His wife, however, hates Odin, but just kind of goes along with him for fear of what the hell he'll do if he doesn't. But he's been trying to get her husband for years, or she's been trying to get her husband for years to stand up to his father. In the end, that happens, but we'll get to that. And just to kind of hammer home how manipulative Odin is, he spares all the humans from Midgard during Fimbulwinter and brings them over to Asgard. And they're like, hey, why don't you come live here? Da 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 da. Live outside the city, make a little shelter, yada yada yada. Here's the thing, though. When Ragnarok happens, he positions them directly in the path of Ragnarok, essentially using them as beat shields. And Odin basically says, you owe me. So that's why Thor's wife is there, because she's actually trying to help evacuate some of the humans. That's why she goes, you know, he's right. Odin is a dick. He's always been a dick. He will use and get rid of all of us if we are no longer useful. So she believes her mother and yada yada. That caused a disagreement between Thor, who sees it and thinks Kratos is trying to kill his daughter. So that starts the final boss fight. In the end, Kratos defies his own destiny. Funny enough, we actually do also meet the Nornir, if you're wondering, all this destiny talk, if the Nornir get involved. Yes, they do, and we do meet them. They are creepy. But basically the Nornir kind of spill the beans when it comes to Destiny. And basically they say this, and it's kind of a thing you also hear about, funny enough, in Destiny itself. Well, not entirely, but still. Where basically the Nornir say this. All this talk about Destiny is all bull. Because here's the thing. It doesn't actually exist. There is nothing set in stone. The only reason people like us being the Nornir, are able to predict people's futures is because people are just so accurate and so easy to predict. And they refuse to change. And through those actions, we can essentially predict what you will do. Now, this doesn't have to happen. You can always not do what you're going to do. But again, people refuse to change, so this is how prophecy exists. So yes, prophecy is, in Kratos' own words in the first game, a lie told by the gods. And the Nornir essentially confirm this fact. And confirm that Kratos will die. Here's the thing, he doesn't. Why? Well, because the Nornir were right. His shtick, as the Nornir so bluntly point out, is that he kills gods. And that his killing of gods will get him killed in the end. Or at least in this case it will. Specifically, I think it comes down to him choosing to not kill gods. Like, it's basically going like this. He is foretold that he will kill Heimdall and he will kill Thor. Or he will attempt to kill Thor. He does kill Heimdall, though reluctantly. Heimdall kind of essentially appears and, you know, he doesn't, but Heimdall kind of forces it.
Don't make me do this. And it's like, for God's sakes, man, I've killed one just like you before. I've killed Hermes. Please, just stay down.
Yeah, like Hermes, he's a dick, so he kind of deserves it. But not like he didn't try.
No.
And in the case of Thor, there was a whole disagreement. In the end, Thor loses the battle, and and Kratos could have killed him. But instead, he takes a knife, jabs it through Thor's hand, and just kind of walks away and says, "For our children, we must be better." So in the end, Kratos doesn't kill Thor and actually convinces him what he's doing is stupid, and for both of their kids' sake, they can't do this. Thor believes him because it turns out throughout the course of his adventures with Atreus, he's also kind of been convincing Thor, hey, maybe you should start thinking for yourself, because Thor's line is like, don't think. Kind of like what his father's hammered into him. Yeah. And Atreus throughout the thing was like, why don't you think for yourself then? In the end, he does, stands up to Odin and goes, enough, you know, I won't do this. How does Odin respond? He promptly impales his son with his own staff and kills him in front of his own daughter. Yeah, this is Odin, guys. Not like you weren't warned.
Yeah.
So yeah, Kratos doesn't die because he doesn't kill Thor. Odin dies, and Odin is the one who ends up doing in Thor. Because he basically starts refusing to take orders. At least his wife and daughter get out of it, and it's actually revealed in the epilogue that she might actually fulfill her father's legacy and is actually starting to train with his hammer, so there you go. Long story short, we meet Freya, by the way. If you're ever wondering what happened to Freya in the first game, where she hates Kratos, she still does for like half the game. And then you help her break her curse, or Odin, which is basically Odin cursed her to... She actually managed to regain her warrior spirit, as it's called, but basically it's a curse that prevents her from actually fighting or laying harm to any other living beings. She manages to break that, though apparently at her expense at great risk, which she refuses to speak of. So yeah, she manages to break that one, but the only one she can't break still is the one that binds her to Midgard, where she cannot leave. In the end, Kratos helps her do this, and throughout the course of it, Kratos comes clean about his past. In fact, Kratos comes clean with a lot of people about his more questionable past. especially when he's trying to calm down Freya, who he sees as a friend. You know, Freya goes, you know, what do you know of losing a child? He goes, a lot more than you think. And he comes clean with her about his wife and his first wife, or he comes clean with her about his first wife and how he slaughtered both his wife and daughter, and how he did so in service to a god, and yada yada yada. And he basically comes clean with her, saying, you know what, I know what it's like to lose family. And it's worse because I'm the one who killed them too, so...
Yes, I was the one who was tricked and deceived into killing my own family without even realizing where they were.
So yeah, that mends some scars. And in the end, they get to back to working together. In fact, she's actually the companion you get in the final bit of the game, as well as the other parts where... basically, yeah. They forgive. In fact, there's actually kind of a bit of kind of a bit of thing where it's like, you know, maybe they might get together. It's kind of weird.
I don't think
If not,
so.
they're very good friends. If not, they're very good friends.
Yeah, no, I think if anything, it would be like a good understanding relationship between the two.
Yeah.
Where it's like they kind of help each other out.
Yeah. Funny enough, both her and Mimir can interpret Kratos' grunts, so she's at least capable of knowing what he's thinking.
Yes. I mean,
also,
you spend enough time around a man who grunts, you learn the language well.
Funny enough, though, in the beginning of the game, his Kratos' son Atreus, who again goes off in the end with Agaboda, presumably, to basically find the rest of the giants who, like I said, kind of said, feck all of this, and went off to presumably the other realms. So that leaves Kratos, Mimir, and Freya to basically clean up the rest. As for Freya's brother Freyr, he dies in Ragnarok, actually self-sacrificing himself to give the others a chance to escape. We haven't mentioned him yet, but that's because he's kind of a character that floats in and out of the story. However, there is one character that cannot be forgotten. Tyr. See, in the beginning of the game, we meet Tyr. So, basically, in the first game, like I said, all the gods of Norse mythology are kind of hyped up in their own way. Odin's portrayed as a manipulative monster, Thor is portrayed as a douchebag mass murderer, who he is. Though we kind of, like I said, learned to sympathize with him over the course of Ragnarok, with the fact that he was kind of forced into that role by Odin. And while he did kind of enjoy it, don't get me wrong, you kind of have to feel bad for the guy. And then you meet Tyr. Tyr is the god of war in Norse mythology, though he's not your traditional god of war such as Kratos or Ares was before him. No. Tyr is a wise god of war. As Mimir would put it, he's a god of war that believes in preventing war.
He understands what war is.
Pretty much. He basically acted like this grand negotiator and basically used his position as the god of war in order to prevent wars from happening or stop them if they were. He was also quite the worldly traveler. In fact, in Tyr's vault, we learn that Tyr actually has gone to all the other pantheons and has actually traveled the world, and this got him very beloved. In fact, he was even beloved by the giants, who gave him a special set of eyes that allowed him to travel between the realms at will. These eyes only were shared with him and Mimir, so, you know, it's a very coveted thing. Regardless, he went off, traveled the realms, met all the other pantheons, presumably. Like, in the temple, we see him meeting what appears to be the Aztec pantheon, the Chinese, possibly Japanese pantheon, the Egyptian pantheon, and, of course, the Greek pantheon. So he's been around, and he's shared his information, and he shared it freely with everyone else, and they shared it with him. And he was very beloved and very wise. So, here's the thing. What happened to him? Well, Tyr was a very big fan of the giants. He, like I said, was a very big advocate for giant rights, though, as Mimir says in the very early beginning of the game, I don't know if he ever actually outright declared allegiance. But he always did advocate for their rights. In the end, Odin kind of tricked Tyr into getting him a meeting with the giants on their own home turf. of which the giants predicted would probably be a grand trap, which it was. They then cast Odin out of the realm. Odin then took his entire rage out on all the other giants still in Midgard by basically ordering Thor to massacre them on sight. And Tyr kind of felt responsible for all that, despite the fact that Odin assured him it would be a good faith discussion and da-da-da-da-da, and Odin is very good at tricking people if you haven't gotten that already.
Yes.
Regardless, that happened. And what of Tyr nowadays? Well, nobody knows. According to Mimir, back when he was under the service of Odin, who, again, this was apparently told to him when he thought Odin trusted him, but again, with Odin, who really knows if he trusts anybody, he was told that he killed Tyr. Because when all the giants fled back to Jotunheim, they covered their tracks really well. And the kind of world travel system that exists was kind of an invention of Tyr in a way. And it was kind of done in a way that it was so clean and so perfectly cut off from the rest of the realms that only Tyr would really know how to do that. So Odin kind of thinks that Tyr was the one who kind of helped. The running theory was that Tyr helped the giants escape back to Jotunheim and then probably cover their tracks so no one could follow. Odin probably believed this as well, and thus held Tyr accountable. And what he did with him, nobody knows. Until Ragnarok, that is, where we learn that he is being held in Sniffelheim. Or I think that's what the dwarves call their realm. Svartalheim, I think. Yeah, that's it. I think that's it. I'm not great at pronouncing Norse names. But anyways, we go to Svartalheim with Atreus desperate to meet Tyr, who he believes will lead Ragnarok. Because it turns out, in the first game, there's this weird collectible, right? They're these basically panels, and they tell the story of giants, their origins, their life, and how they end up dying. Like I said, the giants really like prophecy. And they're just a runaway collectible that's good for getting story and background on the characters, and it helps introduce all the other characters. Basically a story of all the giants and how they lived and died. Here's the thing. These panels in the second game are actually revealed to be quite important and actually hold a secret. Turns out in those panels, there is a hidden chamber of sorts? I don't know. Basically, what you see on the panels is the public story, what the world knows. But if you have giant's blood, like Atreus, you can peer behind the panels and into this kind of sand hourglass world of sorts. It's hard to explain. And basically you get a slideshow about what actually happens. This is how, for example, Atreus learns that the Ragnarok myth is bogus. Because the soothsayer hid the true prophecy from Odin, which is revealed in the panels. Among all the other things about the giants, which turned out to be either fabrications or half-truths. Or in some cases, just information that was never fully disclosed. Not wrong, but not fully right either. Anyways, so Atreus sees that Tyr will be the one to lead Ragnarok, or at the very least it is, or at least seems to be. As Mimir would say, the tricky thing about prophecies is they really aren't very descriptive, so they're more like templates than anyone can fill. All we see is a guy with a spear and a shield. Which, Tyr has a spear and a shield. That's Tyr.
Well, it appears to be Tyr until the end of the game.
Until the end of the game, but we'll get to that. So anyways, he's desperate to meet Tyr, figure out who Loki is, so they go to Svartalheim with the help of the dwarves. Brock and Sindri will cover them. And go find Tyr. They do. He's a sniveling wreck. It's played off that all the years of torture by Odin has kind of broken Tyr. And he's more of a wimp. And throughout the entire game, he's basically trying to, he helps on occasion, but he often tries to let's not do war, let's not do this. He's portrayed as a coward, essentially. Well, I'm just going to pull the curtain back behind you now. For those who don't know, again, major spoiler warning.
We've already told you spoilers, but
Well, this is a big one.
Yes.
So I feel like it should be covered by itself. So, major spoilers incoming!
This is like the end of the game spoiler right here.
Yeah. Big plot reveal. So, Tyr, the one you rescued from Svartalheim, it ain't Tyr. It's Odin. This whole time, you actually rescued Tyr, who was actually Odin in disguise, and brought him to your secret base, and briefed him on all the secret plans you had, including the fact that apparently the prophecy of Ragnarok is bogus, or at the very least, not entirely right.
So, yeah,
And in
he
the end,
knows.
yeah, he knows, and he's known the entire game because you told him. And so how does Odin get around? Well, he gets around through his ravens, which he kind of uses as kind of teleporters. And in the beginning of the game, actually, Atreus brings up a very good point. If these ravens can just snatch up anyone and whisk them away, or whisk Odin away wherever he wants, why doesn't this just stop Odin from abducting people en masse? Well, as Mimir says, there's a big catch with these ravens. The only way to travel by them is through consent. Which is why Odin can't just use them to whisk people away at will, because if they don't consent, it doesn't work. So apparently, as Mimir jokes on later in the game, he's often comic relief in the games. Apparently, somehow, when you gave Tyr the broom closet, apparently Odin managed to sneak a raven in there and hide it in the broom closet. But, yeah, so Tyr turns out to be Odin in disguise, thus leaving you with the impression Tyr is truly dead, and this has all just been one grand ruse. And it gets better. Just before he leaves, he kills Brock, one of the two dwarven brothers that has helped you since the first game. Why does he do this? Well, because Brock points out the stupidity of Tyr's plan. Because they're like, okay, now we gotta get to Ragnarok, now we gotta get to Asgard and start Ragnarok and yada yada yada. How do we do that? And they don't want to use they want to use Jormungandr, or not Jormungandr, Galahorn. Because fun fact, Heimdall actually has Galahorn, and when Kratos kills Heimdall, he takes Galahorn off him. Because here's the fun thing. In the prophecies, it's foretold blowing Galahorn will start Ragnarok, but it's never revealed how. Well, in the game it is, and Atreus catches a glimpse of one of Odin's notes revealing how that'll happen. Turns out what the thing does is essentially opens all the realms up to each other all at once, simultaneously. For a brief moment. And basically allows all realms to flood into every other realm, or in the case of what is necessary, all the other realms to flood into Asgard. So, all the armies of elves and what's left of the Vanir and etc, 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 they can all just plow into Asgard en masse and thus start the war.
Yes.
They don't want to use that, though, because it's kind of a last resort. Because, you know, if they want to be sneaky, you know, there really isn't anything sneaky with opening up a giant frickin' bunch of portals and just plowing in. So Tyr goes, hey, I know a secret way into Asgard. It's through some secret tunnels that nobody knows about, and yada yada yada. And Brock goes, hey, wait a minute. I know portals and all the secret routes, because these dwarves do that thing. They have these ways of traveling, like, almost between, like, shadows in a way. And they're like, I've never heard of any secret way into Asgard, and if he knows, then Odin surely knows, and on and on and on. In the end, this questioning just ends with Brock getting stabbed by Odin, again, with his staff, again. Odin likes stabbing things with his stick. But,
I mean, he has a stick.
well, spear, stick
He's
thing.
stick. He does stabbing.
Regardless, in the end, it's a brief confrontation while Brock is dying in Sindri's arms, who, again, a little bit of a spoiler, it turns out Brock's already died once before, and Sindri is desperate to ensure he doesn't die again. A little bit of a spoiler, a little bit of an interesting plot story there. Not really relevant, but it's a nice little bit. I'll leave that for anyone who wants to explore the game to figure out how that happens. But regardless, it's this standoff, because the MacGuffin of this story, the whole story, why Odin is so obsessed with everything, is because he wants to prevent his death. And in the beginning of the game, he says, you know what? Forget the giants, I don't care about them anymore. Because here's the thing. He's got a new plan. There is this crack under his house, in his basement, essentially. In Odin's basement, essentially. Which allows one to peer into basically the in-between, primordial creation itself. A thing that almost supersedes all the pantheons in a way. And this mask, which, theoretically, if used, could allow one to peer into this realm unharmed. Odin is obsessed with completing this mask, because the whole shtick as to why he doing this, and again, we can't really trust this explanation from it's from Odin, but it seems logical at least, so who knows, is that Odin doesn't want to die because he doesn't know what comes next. You know, they're the gods, they're the highest tier of existence. When mortals have a problem, they go to the gods, who know what comes next. But what do the gods do? They don't got nobody. What happens when Odin dies? Basically, he's having an existential crisis, and considering he's a really old man, that kind of makes sense. So he wants to know what comes next. There is no Valhalla for me, as he would say. So his shtick is that he wants to peer behind this veil and figure out what happens. What happens when I die? Is there a place I go to? Do I just disappear? What is it? And throughout the course of the game, Atreus, who can read the writing on the mask somehow, or at least can decipher it, puts this mask together for the sake of helping Odin, or at least supposedly, while gaining information on Asgard, its defenses, and yada yada yada. In the end, Atreus swipes the mask at the last minute. But this is, like I said, when Tyr reveals himself to be Odin, attempts to steal the mask back after stabbing Brock. But Kratos, just before he whisks himself away through his ravens, snatches it back, and basically Odin whisks himself away with nothing.
Yes.
So now they stole the mask. But it's too late. Brock dies. Sindri, pissed as all hell, and blames Kratos and Atreus for this, as well as Odin, obviously, because, you know, the dwarves shared their home with Kratos and Atreus, and that's where all of this has been going down, and unbeknownst to all of them, they invited Odin into their house, and Odin killed one of them, specifically his brother. So yeah, now he's really pissed at everyone, especially Odin. And so yeah, he helps out at Ragnarok, saying that no other dwarves need to die. He's the one who actually brings down the wall of Asgard with a chisel. Don't ask.
Yes.
In the end, boss fight with Bat Odin ensues. Twice. Again, long story. And Atreus comes to Odin and says, you have to stop this. You don't have to be this way. You can be better. And Odin's like, I will never stop. I must know what happens next. And Atreus like, I wish you hadn't said that. And remember those marbles we were talking about earlier? You know, the ones for the giants? Turns out, he's not the giants weren't the only ones who made marbles for them. Turns out the giants, I guess kindly enough, decided to make Atreus and Kratos a marble for themselves as well, because the marbles are basically a marble with the name inscribed in runic on the marble. So, you know, so. And Atreus and Kratos have their own marbles. So what? And Kratos actually takes his father's marble and ends up sticking Odin in it. So he basically siphons out Odin's soul in the end of the fight and sticks it in the marble.
And then he gives it to Freya because Kratos said he would never rob Freya of a chance to basically determine the fates for himself, because last time that happened, he killed Baldur against her wishes, and we all know how that ended. So Kratos is given the marble by Atreus, who then promptly gives it to Freya, who he then goes, you deal with him. He's your ex. You're the one who wanted him dead. What do you want to do? And in the end she goes, for everything I've done, I don't really have it in me to kill him anymore. Weird.
Yeah.
And then Sentry comes out of nowhere, snatches up the marble, puts it on the thing, and smashes it with a hammer.
Yes.
Before declaring, that's what comes next.
Yes.
And promptly vanishing again.
Not too keen on hanging around, that's for sure.
Yeah, the dwarves have a habit of doing that in general, but yeah. Or at least they do.
Well, there you go. That's basically the whole story.
That's basically the primary story, minus a few smaller subpoints. By the by, fun fact actually. Remember Tyr? How Tyr wasn't Odin, or Tyr wasn't Tyr and turned out to be Odin this whole time? Well, fun fact, throughout the entire little bit of the end game, the odd hour or two that you're still there, you're thinking, well, shit, Tyr's been dead this whole time then. No, turns out he hasn't been. That was also another lie. Odin didn't kill him, and instead stuck him in this maximum security prison hidden somewhere in Svartalheim, or what's the cold realm? Opposite the heat realm? I don't remember what it's called.
I was gonna say Midgard, but no, Midgard's just frozen over because of Ragnarok.
Yeah. That's just frozen over because of Fimbulwinter.
Ah.
It's the opposite to one where Cedar comes from.
Yeah.
Not Muspelheim, it's
I can't remember.
what's the opposite of Muspelheim?
Yeah, no,
Might be Svartalheim.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Anyways, in that realm, there's apparently a maximum security prison, which Odin had concealed with his magic. Which turns out after Asgard gets destroyed, all the pieces of Asgard essentially rain down throughout the realms. Because that's how that works.
Yep.
And Odin's magic, being that he's dead, is now broken. So whatever magic was keeping it secret is now broken. You go to this maximum security prison on a hunch, because funny enough, that's actually where you also find the Raven Tree. Odin has little ravens spying for him, not his actual ravens, but his more akin to his the spirit ravens he's got spying for him, and you can kill them throughout the entire game, kind of like a little optional side story. But like all things in God of War, they're not as easy as it seems. So in Svartalheim, I think that's where it is at least. You go to the Raven Tree, which is where all these ravens go to when they kind of reconstitute themselves when you destroy them. And they kind of all tell you a story in concert with each other. It's kind of creepy. But basically it kind of plays out like this. All these little ravens, these like 100+ ravens that you kill throughout the game, yeah, well, they're all the souls of children. Fun! How did that happen? Well, apparently it went like this. These are children that their parents or someone offered up to Odin to be useful, and were killed in ritual sacrifice to that end. What did Odin do? He took them, put them in the bodies of ravens, and then had them basically forced to spy for him. This also unlocks an optional boss known as the Raven Keeper, which is kind of Odin's zealot who kind of manages the Raven Tree and kind of reforces them to basically follow Odin's will. You also get a cool bit of armor throughout this whole thing. I wish I knew about this while I was freeing the ravens. I really didn't pay attention to that side plot until like the end of the game, where it's like, oh wait, here's all this cool armor I could have gotten for like progressively freeing the ravens.
Well, I mean, technically you probably maybe could still get it. I'm not too sure.
Oh no, you can still get it. It's just by the time I got it, I was like the end of the game. It's like, well, this is useless. I've killed everything already.
Oh, it's not useless. It just means you have something interesting from your enemy who you've defeated.
But anyways, yeah, so in this place you can also unlock this prison. And you go down the prison and there's a few questions posed while you're going down by Freya, who is again with you, and Mimir, who is always with you. And you see random people in the prison. Like, this prison's been destroyed, but some Einarjar have survived Ragnarok, who have either been at their posts or managed to survive somehow on a piece of Asgard that fell from the sky. Not sure how that works, but okay. or fell from the realms.
Yes.
But you see random people from random, like, you see an elf, you see a light elf, you see a dark elf, you see a human who's dead, you see a bunch of beings from other races, and you go, why are they all here? Like, they don't, like, some of these people are quite influential too, so, like, why are they here? And in the very bottom of the prison, who do you find? Tyr. The real Tyr. Locked up in prison. Who is very different than what Odin betrayed him as, which, as Mimir would say, he basically made a parody of Tyr, or what he perceived Tyr to be, and made a mockery of him. Tyr is far from a weak coward when you finally meet him. He's actually completely unbroken and just kind of surprised to see someone else, before promptly being asked to be kind of left alone to his thoughts. Because, well, everything else was happening, including the literal end of the world. He was stuck, in his own words, chiseling little 1s and 2s into a cell wall.
Yeah, he was
Chiseling
what was it? Chiseling runes into his wall.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Kind of like counting the days.
Yeah.
But, yeah, you can actually find him after that if you go throughout the realms. You can actually find him in specific places, and he kind of gives you little bits of backstory and stuff like that. And everyone kind of jokes that, while old Tyr, like fake Tyr, was a coward, real Tyr's a hippie.
Yeah.
You just kind of find him some places, like literally doing yoga or meditating or stuff like that.
Yeah, he's just like chilling out in different places, either admiring everything or just like meditating, basically.
Yeah, you see him like one person's like, wait. You see him in like one place, I think in like Vanaheim, committing like Tai Chi, and you're sitting there going, is he performing Tai Chi in the middle of the forest?
Yes.
Well, just like zenning out and like talking to us. Okay, whatever. I mean, he has gone to all the realms, so let's be honest. He probably picked that up from like one of the Asian gods, I'm assuming.
Probably.
Or maybe one of the Buddhist gods or something. I don't know. But yeah. So Tyr's alive, though. Again, like I said, kind of useless. Because the Tyr you actually get to do anything with turns out to be fake, and the real Tyr, by the time you free him, it's the end of the game. There's actually also an end scene epilogue for actually all the dwarves kind of invite you to a funeral held in their realm for Brock in his memory. And Kratos can go there, and that's what kind of is a true epilogue of the game. I have not actually seen that yet because I've not done that part yet. But I have basically seen how it plays out, and basically, yeah, Seitree still hates Kratos and Atreus. Because he still thinks they're kind of also responsible for his brother's death. But the rest of the dwarves are like, it's not, but okay, whatever.
Yeah, it's like there wasn't a whole lot that they could do. Like, they were tricked too.
Like I said, you kind of learn from Seitree why this kind of response is reasonable for him. But I'll save that for the story.
Mm-hmm. Something for others to experience for themselves.
Mm-hmm. And in the end, like I said, Atreus and Agaboda, or at least I presume with Agaboda, goes off to find the other dwarves, or other giants who, like I said, pieced out to presumably other pantheons to kind of live as hermits or something, or like wandering gypsies. Let's be honest, with their foretelling ability, that actually fits the bill quite well. And Thor's daughter and her mother, they kind of live in Vanaheim. Funny enough, actually, I saw one scene while wandering through YouTube that I didn't actually see. In the beginning of the game, actually, Kratos is presented a little bit of cash from Odin paying for the roof, because Odin, or if you don't remember, Thor, when he first arrives, basically smashes the roof of Kratos' house with his lightning. And throughout the discussion, Odin leaves and like basically puts coins on the table to pay for the damages. And Kratos kind of leaves and just chucks the coin, with Mimir just shouting, "Keep the change!" But fun fact, one of the human characters you meet throughout the course of the game, or at least Atreus meets, and you kind of meet as Kratos a little bit, ends up finding that coin. And according to the thing, I didn't actually see the scene play out. I might see it in the game myself. I might go and look for that scene. But essentially what happens is I think he becomes like king of Norway or something like that. The first king of Norway or something like that. He finds Odin's coin and becomes the first king of Norway or something like that. I don't know. But so yeah.
Oh, there you go.
But anyways,
Tidbit
yeah.
for people.
Yeah, and like I said, Atreus goes off to find the giants. Thor's daughter ends up practicing with the hammer. You can actually, I think, find her in Alfheim playing with it. And as for Kratos himself, he actually finds a mural behind, because Agaboda shows them a mural, him and Atreus, who he hasn't met until like the end of the game, and shows a mural about their entire life's journey. And it turns out the mural that we see back in 2018 was smashed, the one that foretold their death. Who smashed it? Well, apparently Kratos' wife, who, like I said, was also a giant. Remember how I said that not all the giants agreed with leaving their fates up to prophecy?
Yes.
She was one of them. And actually was one of the people who originally fought and apparently defeated Thor. So she basically did that so her wife and so her husband and son could basically make their own destinies.
Yeah. Or at least ensure that their own destinies were their own.
Yeah, pretty much. So they weren't basically like the giants and, you know, kind of left themselves up to whatever prophecy said. Which, let's be honest, that's never been Kratos' specialty anyway. Just ask the Greek fates. Oh wait, you can't. They're dead.
Yeah.
He killed them.
They're gone.
They're gone. Very gone.
You can't ask something that doesn't exist.
And in behind, when Agaboda and Atreus go off, he walks behind the mural and sees another mural. And this is his personal story. You see him leaving Greece, and you see a picture of Freya, and you see their story, and their little meeting with Jormungandr. And in the end, the final panel, you see Kratos, or a statue of him, a golden statue of Kratos, holding up his axe, and just a golden statue being worshipped by the masses. And you see fruits and baskets and coins and gifts being offered up to him, you know, being treated as a god, legitimately.
Which, ironic enough, actually leads to the point where Odin, at one point near the end of the game, was like, you don't know what it's like to be a god, to be worshipped.
Yeah, that's the weird part. In a way, he's not wrong, but in a way, he's not right either. Because people kind of forget. Remember, he used to be the Greek god of war, and all of Sparta worshipped his ass, so... Granted, not in the traditional way. They worshipped him through committing mass murder, but...
I mean, following
you know,
war
he's the god
itself,
of war, so kind of
yeah. It's like, you know, it's war. He's doing what he wants you to be doing, killing.
So, yeah, it's... He knows what it's like to be worshipped. Maybe not loved, but he knows what it's like to be worshipped. I mean, Odin even refers to him in the beginning. Yeah, definitely feared. He still is. I mean, hell, even the beginning of the game, Odin refers to him as the retired god of war. So, you know, it's not like he doesn't know what it's like to be a god. It's just he doesn't know the kind of like prayer, you know, how to be loved part of being a god. You know, he's very happy about this, and he goes on to do that. Some people actually joke that, interestingly enough, I guess Kratos is the new All-Father. Which I suppose makes a little sense. As for the mask, if you're wondering what happens to that, in the beginning, or in the end I should say, between the first and second boss fight with Odin is like, you know, what are you going to do? Because Atreus takes out the mask, he sees the crack, and it's like, well, what are you going to do? No more stick, no more battle. What will you do? And he kind of leaves it up to Atreus to decide. And earlier on, when the mask is first shown, Kratos doesn't, you know, advise it, because he says all knowledge comes, like, knowledge of this caliber always comes with some kind of price, even if you don't know it at the time. And Atreus kind of takes his father's words to heart, smashes the mask, and the mask pieces just get yanked in this little crack, and the crack seals itself entirely. And thus the second boss battle with Odin begins. But if you're wondering what happened to the mask, that's one. But yeah. So this is a little bit of an interesting point. Overall, like I said, the game was really good. Was really well thought out. I actually really enjoyed playing it. And it does open up a few questions, right? Before the game came out, Santa Monica Studios said that this would be the end of the Norse saga. And the reason this game was like twice the size of the second one is because they didn't want to have to extend the Norse trilogy into 3 games like they do with the Greek trilogy. Because I guess they're referring to these as trilogies now. And they said that the Ragnarok game would be the end of Kratos' Greek Norse trilogy. Keyword there being Norse trilogy, and they also refer to the Greek trilogy.
Yes.
So people are wondering, what now?
What's next?
I mean, yes, Atreus has gone off to look for the other giants. Funny enough, actually, one of Odin's ravens, whom I can't remember the name of, also survives. Like pet raven. So maybe Atreus has also gained Odin's ability to whisk himself between places.
Who knows?
But would certainly fit for him. But being Loki and all. But you know, the question is, you know, what now? Kratos is going to be busy rebuilding Norway and stuff like that, and he's got Freya and Mimir with him still and stuff like that. So he'll be there for a little bit, unless something forces him out, or at the very least forces him to do something else for a little bit. So people are wondering, are we going to continue the games with Kratos still, or are we going to continue them with Atreus? Atreus would be the easiest, though maybe not the funnest. I won't lie, there are sections where you have to play as Atreus, like while he's, like I said, in Asgard and stuff like that. I personally didn't enjoy those scenes as much, if not that much at all.
Well,
That's
of
just my 2
course,
cents.
you're not like the iconic Slayer guy.
Even so, they were just...
It
I just
felt
didn't enjoy
slow.
them. Not because... It didn't feel slow, though you could certainly describe it as that. It just didn't feel as fun.
There you go.
So I don't know if I'd be willing to do that for a full game. But, you know, I could certainly see a few spin-off games with Atreus and other pantheons. That I can certainly see. But, you know, Kratos is Kratos, and the games are called God of War. And as much as we would want to admit it, well, maybe not want to, but Atreus isn't a god of war. Hell, I don't think he even is a god. Well, he is by blood. In fact, if anything, he's more of a demigod if you want to be specific. I mean, yes, he's referred to as a god, because technically, depending on who you ask, there is no such thing as a half-god, but let's be honest, in the most traditional sense, he is a demigod at best. And technically he'd be a demigod, except for the fact that his father kind of moved up in the ranks when he took over Ares' job, so...
Yeah, there's a few
But at the end
things
of the
here and
day, whether Atreus is a god or not is irrelevant. He's not the god of war. He's... I don't know, honestly, what he would be the god of. Like, sometimes, like, Agaboda sometimes even just, like, sometimes you run better on Chaos, which I don't know when it comes to Atreus, at least. And Atreus even kind of, like, yells this to his father, you know, sometimes I run better on Chaos. Albeit, you know, this is kind of a moot point because he says that promptly before or after committing some massive mistakes. So it's like, do you, though? Do you? We're doing this whole thing to fix your problem because you, quote-unquote, ran on Chaos.
yes.
I don't know. But anyways. But at the end of the day, it's like, he's a god, whether you want to, like, of what type and of what level is up to you, but at the end of the day, he's not the god of war. So calling the games God of War would be really weird if Atreus was the one starring in them. Albeit, like I said, I can see some spin-off games because they'd be really easy to do because now he's traveling by himself or potentially with Agaboda. But when it comes to, you know, Kratos, like I said, for the time being, he's still in Norway, or he's still in the Greek or the Norse pantheon, or what's left of it anyway. So, with the end of the Norway saga, or the Norse saga, what will happen now? Obviously, we'll probably go to another pantheon, but how the hell will we do that, and with who?
Yeah. What pantheon would we go to?
Like I said, we've got a few options to choose from here. We've got the Egyptian, the Asian pantheon, the Aztec pantheon. Hell, we could even go back to the Greek pantheon and see how the hell they're doing.
Yeah. See what's left of the remnant.
Yeah, see what happens now. Like I said, it's not like they couldn't make cameos for the other characters that are already in the pantheon. I mean, just because it's the end of the Norse saga doesn't mean some of the Norse gods can't come with him, like potentially Freya, very possibly Mimir. Mimir actually also hints to possibly being Scottish in origin, where he's talking about Kelpies and, stuff like that. Sea hags and stuff like that, which I believe are all Scottish things. So is there like a Scottish pantheon as well? Oh god, I want to see what that looks like. But, how will that happen? Like, it's not like they couldn't bring some characters from the Norse pantheon over, just because it's not based in Norway anymore. The end of the Norse pantheon the end of the Norse saga just means it can't really be based in Norway or the Norse area anymore. Doesn't mean Norse characters can't still make an appearance or be in the games. I mean, in the first God of War 2018, Athena actually makes a cameo appearance while Kratos is proclaiming his blades, so it's not like they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Plus, there's still the question of what the hell even is Athena these days, like.
No, I'd be willing to bet chances are they might. It's hard to tell, but I'd have a feeling that they might go Egyptian, because although they could go the Asian gods, I have a better feeling that it would be the Egyptian, because the Egyptian were slightly connected to the Greek more than the Norse gods. So I have some kind of feeling where Greece is kind of coming back with the help of the Egyptian gods, and Kratos kind of sees like some of the things that they are doing to the people there, and they're like, that really does not seem right. Some of the things that you are doing here seems pretty morally wrong.
Well, funny enough, you should bring up Egypt. I actually wager on that too, because funny enough, Cory Barlog, the guy who was in charge of the God of War 2018 remake, and kind of had his hands in this one a little bit, though he kind of let a new game director take over this one. He actually said when they were rebooting the franchise, they had actually made a full mock-up trailer, and you can see it, of a full rendered, full color animated trailer of Kratos with a scene of him in Egypt. And the game was originally going to take place in Egypt with the Egyptian gods, and there was still a kid with him at the time, but they hadn't really made the idea that it would be his son or stuff like that yet. So there is still, so they were at least working on the concept of Egypt. So it certainly is possible they could pick that up for the next game series as well, because like I said, they probably already have some ideas of what they do there.
Yeah. No, I'd be willing to bet there's
Horus,
a fair
I guess.
amount more planned there. So in other words, God of War is definitely not done anytime soon. It's just moving on from Norse now.
Yeah, it's moving on from Norse. Like I said, don't count the Norse pantheon. Don't count like the members of the Norse pantheon out just because the game will probably not be set in Norway anymore. Like I said, Atreus' whole shtick is that he's off to look for his own people, the giants, which fled from the Norse world to basically go live as gypsies or hermits in other realms or in other pantheons. And Kratos still has Mimir, and now Freya is kind of a traveling companion for him now. So
yeah.
Meh.
We'll see what is next.
And who knows, maybe Sitri and his active hatred towards Kratos, because we know when it comes to people like Freya, people hold grudges against Kratos, so who knows? Maybe Sitri will make a deal with maybe the Egyptian god of death to see if he could try and get Brock back, or maybe just to try and attack Kratos, who knows?
Yeah.
Because Freya even, I think, comments at the funeral, because I've heard this from some people who commented on the epilogue, where it's like Freya says that he's now starting to become like she was at the end of 2018, just consumed with hate and just driven to that end, and that is not a good place.
Yeah. Well, There you go. There's that at least.
So who knows?
I'd say at the end of this, what would you rate God of War at?
I would certainly rate it as a 10. Definitely a must play if you want to play a good game.
There you go.
As far as the God of War games go, when it comes to 2018 versus versus Ragnarok, it's bigger, it's badder, it's got more explosions, it's literally longer. There's more stuff in it.
There's more to do.
If you want to play the game, though, I would advise playing 2018 first, just so you know what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
Because
No. Look.
be-
Yeah. When it comes like to those two games, they both are very seamless in like what they do and most of the mechanics and stuff that you're doing. It's not like the other God of War games where, for the most part, you can kind of just jump from one game to another. You really shouldn't, but you could. In this one, it honestly feels a little jarring that, like, oh yeah, all of a sudden you've got like this kid with you, and these two Norse gods are on you, and you don't know what they're on you about. Like,
you have no idea why Thor's angry at you. You have no idea why Odin's at your doorstep.
It's like,
what's he on about with you killed this kid already?
What blood debt? What the hell did I do?
Plus, it gets you to introduce some of the characters, right?
Yeah.
Funny enough, they actually did canonize why exactly Kratos is weaker in this game, because what God of War has actually always liked to do, and I like to touch on this, every game they kind of explain why you can't use the stuff from the last game, or you're not as powerful as the last game. They always find a way to work that in canonically. Like, for example, God of War 1, Kratos you haven't met at this point. God of War 2, well, he's a god now, so he's got a whole new set of stuff he's working with. God of War 3, well, he sealed all his power into the Blade of Olympus, plus all his stuff came from the god's blessings, which now hate him, yada yada yada. God of War 2018, well, God of War 3 shows that all his stuff from 3 was all busted and left behind, and he even left the Blade of Olympus back, which Athena still has. Again, not know what the hell happened to her. Higher plane of existence, apparently. Which again might lead into this whole what is primordial creation, because fun fact about that mask, Tyr, who again is Odin, confirms that it is not of giant make, and that nobody knows who made it. So, who knows? We might have to deal with some primordial god, like the thing beyond chaos in the very end of all of this. Who knows?
Perhaps.
Or maybe it was just made by some other pantheon. We don't know. But, like I said, the real Tyr didn't see it, and he's got much more worldly knowledge than Odin because he traveled to the other pantheon, so he might have been able to actually confirm if it was from another pantheon or not, but like I said, we didn't meet him officially till the end. But in the case of God of War 2018, like I said, all his stuff is broken, so he's basically got nothing. And in Ragnarok, it's confirmed why he can't use all the stuff from 2018, because he didn't really have much in 2018 to begin with. He had his axe, he had his blades, he had his fists, and he had his armor. And he kind of goes through them step by step in different times and different places to kind of explain why he didn't use them. First, his weapons. Why are his weapons dull and, not as powerful as they were in Ragnarok? Well, Fimbulwinter has this mystical effect which kind of wears everything down. You actually kind of see that in the world. Things are collapsing and when they shouldn't have, and da-da-da-da-da. It just has this ability to wear things down, including the magic of axes and shit like that. Why does Kratos not have all his old game armor? Well, he kind of does, and you get a choice of 3 of the game armors from the first game. But as for all the others, when I think it was either Brock or Sindri kind of asks him, what happened to all that other when he's forging armor for the first time, I think one of them was like, wait, what happened to all that other armor we forged you? And Kratos simply responds is, I used it. So, take that for what you will. It's been used. Which, when it comes to Kratos...
purpose.
Yeah, which when it comes to Kratos, I don't even want to know.
Clearly not needed anymore.
And when it comes to his abilities, for why he can't use any of his old abilities from the old Greek world, Mimir actually brings that up on the off note with him while he's in a boat. Mimir goes, hey brother, which he always calls Kratos and stuff like that. Or he's a habit of calling people that.
Yeah, he calls pretty much everyone brother.
Yeah, he calls everyone brother. He's very familiar that way. Kratos actually doesn't mind it. In fact, he actually thinks it's rather endearing.
There you go.
And actually, in the end of the game, Atreus kind of acknowledges him as kind of his second father in a weird way.
Yeah.
Which, in a way, makes sense. But, oh yeah, Mimir goes, hey, I've heard stories, because Mimir is also very worldly traveled. That's why he's also heard a Ghost of Sparta. He actually reveals that, and he actually geeks out and kind of terrified for the first few seconds in 2018 when he finally realizes he's sitting on the hip of, Kratos. He asks, I heard back in your homeland, brother, the gods wielded power, every kind of power, flavor, power, magical, fire, ice, yada, 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 yada. Could you do any of that? And Kratos is like, yes, I could. For a long time, I could. And he goes, have you ever tried to do it again? And he goes, I have, and it does not work.
I do not have that ability any longer.
And this is when Atreus chimes in. He goes that his mother always used to say, or I think it was either his mother or Freya, I can't remember which one, said that magic is kind of linked to the land in which it is from. So since Greece is now, not Greece anymore, it's just chaos. The logic that Atreus poses is that since Greece and the pantheon of Greece are gone, all the magic of Greece is gone as well, or at least all the magic tied to Greece that was there before is gone.
Or it's just in such a chaotic state where it can't be controlled anymore.
Yeah.
It's
so that's why...
something we just don't know. It's something that might be explored in the future, but right now we don't know.
Yeah. So that's why Kratos can't use any of his old magic from his old Greek God of War days, because, like as Atreus says, it's linked to the land, and, well, that land is kind of currently in a bit of a mess.
There's a bit of problems.
So, yeah, all that magic's dead. And one of the people in the comment section under that one kind of shows, yes, I once had the mythical power to double jump.
Yeah.
A pity that power died along with Greece, it seems.
Yes. A pity the going manipulation of air around your feet is such saddening.
Well, in fairness, the concept of double jumping itself has been explored scientifically, and to do that, it is physically possible, but it would be such in a way where you'd have to literally create a sonic, like you'd have to push air down below you so quickly and so fast after jumping, you'd literally create a sonic boom every time you tried to do it, and did it successfully.
Yes. What, you wouldn't? You wouldn't want, like, a literal weapon at your disposal while you're traversing the world?
Maybe that's why Kratos was able to destroy the entire pantheon. That's why Kratos is so powerful in the old games. He literally had the power to make sonic booms every time he tried to jump.
Here, hold on a second. I need to get up this crate.
I gotta get up this crate. Boom! You just hear the...
Oh no, there's a horde of zombies. Whatever will I do? Here, let me just go up this ledge real quick.
Just go up this ledge. Is that why no attacker ever tried to attack him while he was jumping? They didn't want to be in striking distance.
They didn't want to be close enough.
But I think also there's this one piece where I haven't seen this one yet. I can't confirm this one, but I think there's one clip where he also explains why he's kind of physically weaker than he was back in his like Greek days. Like why he's kind of weaker. And basically the logic is that he's not weaker than he was back in his days in Sparta. He's just holding back his strength.
He doesn't want to go crazy again and like go all out and start destroying everything.
Well, more because the fact that if he really tried to punch something with his full strength, he'd create a freaking hole in the wall.
Yeah. That and the fact that he understands the consequences of what he can do.
Yeah.
So
it's not that he's
He doesn't want
weaker,
to make the same mistakes that he's done before and destroy an entire world.
So, on the question of God of War 1, which is why Kratos is still a god, well, or still immortal, I guess it's kind of explained, kind of not explained, where it's like he's a god, he's immortal still because he is technically still the Greek God of War. Even if the
isn't it in the God of War series, like he goes and gets rid of the first God of War who went and gave him the powers? Didn't they like just never replace him? They dethroned him basically, like they kicked him out, but they never really replaced him, did they?
Well, actually, they did. Basically, and funny enough, actually, Kratos actually talks about this in the second game, in Ragnarok, actually, when he's explaining this to Freya and stuff like that. Basically, it went like this. So, Kratos is a Spartan at this point, right? Just a regular mortal. During one of his crusades, he swears a pact to Ares to save his life and gets the Blades of Chaos and puts himself indebted to Ares. This goes bad. Stuff happens. In the end, a big fight between him and Ares breaks out. He kills Ares. Ares is now dead. There is no god of war at this very moment. The gods then promptly turn around, save Kratos from committing suicide, an act of basically trying to release himself from his pain, and say, hey, we're down a god of war. Want the job? And Kratos is like, yeah, sure, whatever. And that's how they got the god of war. So, yes, they do replace him. Kratos takes his.
No, I'm talking about replace Kratos. Because during the second and third, he goes and eventually goes and starts taking on Zeus and all that. But that happens after like some kind of kerfuffle of like him getting kicked out or something. And
Well,
he's like I can't remember exactly how it goes, but it's like did he get kicked out, or did he just kind of be like, all right, I'm done here, and I'm killing you all now? Like,
No. Basically, it works like this. Basically, he's going around smashing things as the god of war. Athena advises him that Zeus won't like this if you keep doing that. He does it anyway. Zeus doesn't like it. In the end, big battle between him and Zeus breaks out for a few seconds. Zeus kills him for about 6 seconds before he literally wills himself out of the underworld. And so, yeah, he's not dead anymore, and the gods are well aware of this. Basically, they didn't replace him because he is still technically the god of war, even if they don't like him. Basically, the position of godhood is kind of something you have for life. It's a lifetime office. As long as you don't die, there's no need to replace you.
so then basically, in other words, no matter what, he's still technically the Greek god of war. And although
Pretty much,
he killed himself in the third game, he's not dead. Thus,
No, he's
technically,
not dead.
Greece does still have a god.
Yes. Technically, there's also Athena, too. She didn't actually die. But that's beside the point.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah. So, yeah, technically he is still the Greek god of war. It's an office you have for life.
Interesting thing to think about. We'll see if they actually go and do anything with it later. Because like I'm thinking about that now, and I'm like, that would be an interesting development if they did something involving Greece again, or again doing the whole fucking Egyptian Greek type thing that I was talking about.
Well, like I said, he's mostly referred to as the ghost of Sparta because that's what he's known for. But in the case of like Odin, he also refers to him as the retired god of war. Like his position as the god of war is still validated. He's just kind of retired from the position.
He just doesn't care anymore, really.
He just doesn't care anymore, really. Yeah. Even in the third game, actually, when you're killing the Greek gods, you kill Poseidon very early on. You actually find his mistress locked up later on. She still refers to him as like Lord Kratos. So he still has the position. He's just not kind of in favor with the other Olympians at that point.
Obviously. For obvious reasons, but you know.
For obvious reasons, yes.
Well, there you go. We've got a good review right there, going and cracking down on basically the major points of Ragnarok and some of the theories that might come next after their Ragnarok. Of course,
Indeed,
that'll be a year or two later, maybe 3, but still. Depends on what they have set up for their next installment, albeit again probably quite a while away.
At least 2025, 26.
Yeah,
maybe.
like at the very bare minimum, like if they were all of a sudden getting a whole bunch more resources to work
until at least 2023, at my guess.
Yeah, at the very bare minimum.
So. And I'm kind of curious to see who they take it with. But anyways, we'll leave you with that.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed, like I said, our comprehensive wrap-up of God of War. Like I said, I would really recommend you play Ragnarok if you haven't, but play 2018 first. It really puts everything in perspective. Otherwise, you're just going to sit there confused. Still a good game, but you very much certainly wouldn't enjoy it as much if you knew what was going on. But I suppose that's kind of the way of all games, right?
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, we'll leave you with that. Look out for that future name change. Should be coming in the next few days. Just depends on when I get around to it.
Yeah. Yeah, you kind of have to.
So disappointed.
Well, I'm kind of sitting here like you kind of have to talk to me That way we coordinate.
Well, yeah, like I said, I just needed to refill the banner and stuff like that. Was it?
All right.
I'll tell you when I do it, though. Don't worry. I'll keep you in the loop.
Well, obviously, kind of have to. I have to do a lot more changes, you know.
Yeah, now we're officially called the Rumpelstiltskin Hour. Let's go.
Boy, here we go. It's
Oh, boy,
drinking day.
It's drinking day, guys.
Time to drink me a bit of beer.
I'm gonna find that Irish pantheon. Let's go.
We're gonna get here for here now.
But anyways, we'll let you go. And as always, hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, you know the rest.
Good.
And as always,